الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد أيها الإخوة أحييكم بتحية الإسلام السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Peace and mercy of Allah be with you. We begin as always by praising Allah. We praise Him, seek His forgiveness, guidance and His mercy, and we send peace and prayer on His final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. ونسأل الله تعالى أن يغفر لنا ذنوبنا ويكفر عنا سيئاتنا. نسأله أن يتقبل منا وعليه نتوكل وإليه المصير ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. We ask Allah to forgive us, to be merciful to us. We ask Allah to accept our efforts. And when we say accepting our efforts, it's in the learning and in understanding, and we hope that Allah gives us tawfiq and the ability to implement what we understand and learn in our lives, because that's what really matters, isn't it? The idea of all kind of study really is, they say the proof is in the pudding or the eating of it, but in this case, what does that mean? It means that we understand that it affects us in our iman and in our taqwa. It has a real effect. And even that, taqwa and iman, isn't it? If it's just hidden inside, has no outward benefit or effect, then we would question that. Oh, certainly it's going to be questioned by Allah. We don't question and say what's inside, but no doubt it'll be questioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The whole purpose of iman inside, like some ulama said, that iman is like a seed, and seed is in a fertilized soil, that you look after the iman and you do things like this to develop the iman. Why? Because from the seed something's going to happen, isn't it? A tree's going to grow and it's going to give its fruits. Because it's a beautiful analogy, isn't it, really, if you think about it. And what is a tree growing and giving its fruits? It's our behavior, isn't it? Yeah? The tree's benefit is not just in the seed. It's when it grows and gives its fruit and to those who take from it. So we ourselves are like the tree, and our akhlaq and behavior with others is a reflection of the healthiness of the seed. Yeah? Healthiness of the seed. So if our behavior is rotten, and we lie and we cheat and we deceive, and we're wretched and angry and nasty people, whether at home or outside, and if we manage to pretend in the mosque that we're all right, and when we get out of the mosque we're a different person, then there is a problem with the seed. There's something rotten there because it's giving rotten fruit and rotten tree. Yeah? Or the looking after of the seed. So point is, in the end, that we ask Allah to help us, to accept from us in our understanding, in absorbing it, infecting our iman, and we pray and hope that it affects then our lives and how we are with others in following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His messenger, what they sent us in guidance, which is the purpose of all this in the end. And we are blessed to have that guidance. We are blessed to have that guidance. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down human beings, وَإِمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكُم مِّنِّي هُدًى, and from time to time what will come from me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, guidance for you. يَأْتِيَنَّكُم مِّنِّي هُدًى فَمَنْ تَبِعَ هُدَايَ, whoever follows the guidance, فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ, there's nothing for them to fear, and neither do they need to grieve. فلا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون والذين كفروا وكذبوا بآياتنا أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون. The two sides of the equation. You make the choice which one you want. For those who reject what Allah's sending of His signs as a ni'mah, a bounty, and a gift for us, isn't it? Without that, we're just guessing this way, that way. Is it not? We need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us. So He sent the message and the messengers as a bounty to us and a favor to us. So we wouldn't be left with guessing. Whoever then knowingly then rejects وَكَذَّبُوا and denies openly, rejecting and denying our signs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, such will be the people, ashabun nar, the dwellers of the fire, and they will dwell therein forever. They will dwell therein forever and ever. And that's the journey, and that's the purpose, isn't it, brothers and sisters, really? And that's to remind ourselves. This is why we begin with praising Allah. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with things we do to remind ourselves what the essence of our existence is, isn't it? That's why we remind ourselves. It's not just, as many have made it into, it's not just mumbo jumbo that the Imam just, he just says Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, and then we start. We don't know why he said it for. Yeah, it just says it. Perhaps some of them don't even know why they say it either. Yeah. Why are we saying it? Why we say Bismillah? Allah doesn't need it, does He? Allah doesn't need it. We need it. It's a reminder for you and me. When we praise Allah, it's to show gratitude and thanks to Allah. It's to remind ourselves that we need to be grateful, and to praise Him. Because it makes us realize who we are, that we are utterly dependent on Him. Isn't it? Allah doesn't need our praise. Everything in the heavens and the earth is praising and glorifying Allah. Does He need that? He doesn't even need that. Glory be to Him. Glory be to Allah. He doesn't need that. He's free from all that need. Huwa al-Ghaniyyul Hamid. He is above all need and all praiseworthy. Whatever we do or don't do. Isn't that right? وَنَحْنُ فُقَرَاء. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَنْتُمُ الْفُقَرَاء. You are the ones who have nothing. You're in need. Actually, we have nothing. It doesn't take long. But all the things that we amass, and you could take the richest person or people and the most powerful that have lived in the world are living. When they die, they don't never take it with them, do they? They go in a coffin or with or without a coffin into the dirt and soil, and come back after some time, and you'll see it. They'll have rotted. They'll have rotted. There's nothing. So that's the reality. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us our efforts and forgive us. And on Him we utterly depend. Alayhi natawakkal. And He indeed is our goal. Last time we dealt with, in the Seerah story, we finished. We're still in the 5th year after Hijrah, and we dealt with the Ghazwa of Banu Mustalaq, or it's also called Murisi because of the wells of Murisi, where the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba were encamped. So we covered that, and we got to the end of that. And in the end of it, we said there wasn't much really of a fight. There was the trouble caused by Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul and the hypocrites, remember, trying to create hatred and a fight between the Muhajirin and the Ansar, which the Prophet ﷺ dissipated by calming them down, reminding them not to follow Jahiliyyah ways. And the sort of nastiness of the comments of Abdullah ibn Ubay, which the Quran exposed by, remember? Quran exposed, even though he said he didn't say it, Quran exposed him and said this is exactly what he said, using his words. And so on the way back, and I'll come to on the way back, and I said last time I said I left a significant story, which is the story of Ifk. Ifk means a big lie, a slander, which means a sexual slander actually. Sexual slander. Buhtan is the other term used for it. A lie, a slander. In this case, it's called in history and in the Quran and Sunnah, ifk, the slander, because this is a slander against Mu'mineen Aisha radiallahu anha. It's a big and most terrible thing that took place and happened. So I'll come back to that just to finish off. Of course, part of the end of the Banu Mustalaq war was captives were taken, and I told you animals and booty, etc. was taken. And when they went to Medina, one of the captives was Juwayriyah. Juwayriyah bint al-Haris ibn Abi Dirar. Yeah, and Al-Harith ibn Abi Dirar was one of the leaders of the Banu Mustalaq. Yeah, the very tribe we're talking about that was trying to attack, making ready to attack Medina. So she was taken as captive and given to Thabit ibn Qais. After returning to Medina, she came and requested to see the Prophet ﷺ, Juwayriyah, and asked Rasulullah. She said, جاءت إلى النبي تستعينه في عتق نفسها من ثابت ibn Qais. She came to ask for help from the Messenger of Allah. She wanted freedom from captivity from Thabit ibn Qais, and she asked the Prophet ﷺ to help in her having freedom and mentioned her position amongst the people. She was like a princess. She belonged to the daughter of the tribal leader. Yeah. So the Prophet ﷺ listened to her and freed her. He said, but for your freedom, I offer you, it wasn't like you have to, because marriage can't be like that, of course, we understand that. I offer you your freedom as mahr, if you're willing to marry me. So she married Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah, married Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And once the Sahaba found that she'd married Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is beautiful, this story, this is in Abi Dawud, and it's authentic. All the people they'd captured and taken as in captivity were seen as a family because they were a tribe. They said, how can we enslave the relatives of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So they freed them all. All the Sahaba freed them all. Freed everybody. Subhanallah. And many of these people embraced Islam because of the behavior of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba with them. And we saw their behavior before, after Badr as well, remember? How it affected the mushriks. They were amazing, how they treated those who were captured above themselves. Radiallahu anhum ajma'in. A short time after, her father actually came to Medina, Al-Harith himself, and asked for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He met him and asked permission if he could free his daughter so he could leave with her. So the Prophet ﷺ still gave the choice to his daughter. You're free to go with your father or free to stay. Of course, she chose to stay with Rasulullah ﷺ. His father was shocked, obviously, at this. And it said in some reports that he stayed him for some time. Yeah. So he was treated like father-in-law, of course. He was treated well by Rasulullah ﷺ and the Sahaba. He was welcomed because there's no war anymore with him. And he embraced Islam. He embraced Islam. And through him, many others from the tribe as well embraced Islam. And he went back to stay in his own place, Banu Mustalaq, where they were settled. In a report which Akram al-Umari, who's Muhadith, one of the researchers of authenticity of Seerah, he says that it is Hasan, this report, which means it's good report, Hasan al-Ghairi. Has a few weaknesses in some of the reports, but you bring it together, it's a good report. Others say it is weak, but what does it say? After Fatu Mecca, which is a few years later, it is said that the Prophet ﷺ had sent one of his emissaries, his name was Al-Walid ibn Uqba, to collect zakah from Banu Mustalaq, whose leader is Al-Harith. What happens is, it mentions in the report that Al-Walid ibn Uqba, on his way, became fearful for his life. He thought, if I'm going to go and collect zakah from them, they might, attack me, and I'm asking for zakah. And out of fear, he didn't go all the way. He came back, and he claimed to the Messenger of Allah that he went there, and they threatened him to kill him. They threatened to kill him. So that's why he came back. They refused to pay the zakah. Instead, they threatened to kill him. So the Prophet ﷺ sent a Sariya, a battalion, to the tribe of Banu Mustalaq because they refused to pay the zakah. And when the battalion arrived, they met with the leader, and he said, by Allah, this emissary of yours never came. We haven't said anything like that. Neither we're not refusing. He never came. So they came back and reported, and Walid was brought forward, and it was discovered, and that's why it says it was discovered that he was lying. He made up the report that they hadn't refused. And it is mentioned that this is the occasion when the ayah was revealed in Surah Al-Hujurat, Surah number 49, verse 6. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu in ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in fatabayyanu. O you who believe, if a fasiq comes to you, this is Sahabi we're talking about. If we say it's a good report, others say it's daif, so depends on whether you accept it. But anyways, it's a lesson in it. Fasiq here means somebody who's made up a lie. That makes them fasiq. Even if it's a good person, but the story they're coming back with, the news, is a lie. So it's not they are fasiq. Generally, the word fasiq is used for somebody who's a bad Muslim. We call them fusaq. Yeah? So it's a negative term which sort of describes general behavior. But in this verse, it's being used for somebody good, but they're fasiq because they brought a false report. You understand? Ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in, with news, fatabayyanu. And in some riwayah, like in Warsh, the riwayat of Warsh, the qira'ah of Warsh, which is common in Spain and Maghrib in the west of Africa, it is fatathabbatu. So when you hear Warsh recite, don't correct him when he says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu in ja'akum fasikum binaba'in fatathabbatu. He's not going to say fatabayyanu. And that's reported as one of the qira'ahs going back to the Messenger of Allah. But this is important, in the transcript of Uthmani script, when you have this variation of words, it's not the Quran's being changed. It will look, because when the Uthmani script was written, there's no tashkil, there's no dots and fatah kasras. So fatathabbatu and fatabayyanu will look exactly the same. It depends on what dots you put on them. The dots come from the qira'ah, which people have transmitted off by heart down transmissions from prophets, Sahaba, Tabi'in, all the way to this day. Warsh, and Qalun took from Nafi', from Medina. He was the great Imam who became famous for teaching from Sahaba and Tabi'in all the way down to this day. Okay? But the thabbatu, this is just for your information, so you will see, means the same thing. Establish, clarify, establish. Before فَتَبَيِّنُوا أَن تُصِيبُوا قَوْمًا بِجَهَالَةٍ. Before you deal badly with a people out of ignorance. You declare war on somebody, or on hearsay you go and abuse somebody, or you take some action which is not founded because you didn't check first, because it was false news. فَتَبَيِّنُوا أن تصيبوا قوما بجهالهم فتصبحوا على ما فعلتم نادمين. So that you become, after what you've done, you become regretful on what you've done, because it wasn't based on true knowledge. So that's in Hujurat. Anyway, for completion, I mentioned that. You'll find that it's linked with this story of, it's Banu Mustalaq that it's linked with, for those who see it as a report that's good. Now, the story of Ifk. The story of Ifk, as I said, is to do with Aisha radiallahu anha. And it is mentioned in the Quran as well as authentic hadith. Authentic hadith, no less than in Bukhari Muslim. Many reports from many Sahaba, and the most detailed in Bukhari Muslim and others is from Aisha radiallahu anha, Mu'minin herself. So in a long hadith you find Bukhari Muslim like this, this Yeah. That's her telling a story herself. What happened in Bukhari Muslim. So, what does she say? To summarize it for you. Aisha al-Mu'minin radiallahu anha, she says that the Prophet ﷺ, when he used to go out on journeys, battles and things, he would take his wives with him, but not all of them. He would draw lots. Yeah? It's not gambling, drawing lot. What a gambling. Some people say, oh, it's like gambling. Actually, some ulama said it as well, because when they discuss later on, if you've got more than one wife and you're going on a trip, how are you going to do it? Yeah. Some said, majority said, well, we'll do what the Prophet ﷺ did, you know. Yeah, here's the straw, which one you pick. You know what I mean? That's what's drawing lot. The shortest straw, the longest straw wins, and you go. Others said, no. We can't do that. That's a bit like gambling. So how dare you say it's gambling when the Prophet ﷺ, it's not gambling. Anyway, so Aisha says that's what the Prophet ﷺ used to do. And for Ghazwa, this Ghazwa of Banu Mustalaq, yeah, the lot fell on me. So I accompanied him. Aisha says. And she says, when the women accompanied, we used to travel in a holdage. And she also says, this took place after the ayats of hijab had come down. Ayat of hijab are referring to the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, by the way. Hijab here means screening, which means total screening of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. Not with eyes showing, not with half an eye showing, as some said. No, they were completely screened. So when they went out, they went in a holdage, and if they're out of the holdage, they were completely covered. They could see through a netting. Yeah. So this came from. So she's saying herself. If you look at some translations, beware of translations. How many times have I said that to you? Yeah. So you see the Hadith Bukhari, and if you don't see the Arabic, you'll see the translation says, yeah, this war happened after the verses to do with hijab for women came down. It doesn't say that in the Hadith at all. Because there is an interpretation. Because those people who put that in brackets are implying that the hijab screening that came was for all women. But there are others, and that's the most authentic opinion actually, in my opinion, who say that full screening came from the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. She only says after the ayat of hijab came down. She doesn't say for women. So they add that bit in the translation. Yeah. So people are tricked who don't go back to the original Arabic and see it's not there. It's not there. So be careful of coming to a conclusion with translations. And that's significant as well as to what happens, why she says it, because of anyway. She said normally we were traveling in a holdage, and the men would come along and put the holdage on top of the camel. And when we camped anywhere, they would take it off, and we would get out and go into the tents, etc. And at the end of when we were packing up again, they'd pick it up and put it on again. So she said after Banu Mustalaq had finished, we were on the way back. And remember, after Banu Mustalaq, the Prophet ﷺ drove them hard. I told you that last week because they were quarrelling. Yeah? So he made them go day and night, that tough journey. But anyway, when they got a few days from Medina, it seems, doesn't specify exactly, we were encamped somewhere. So Aisha radiallahu anha said, my holdage had been put down, I slipped out, I went away from where the army was settled to relieve myself, to see to my bodily needs. Yeah. And as I came back, I realized that my necklace had broken and I'd lost it. Right? So she left to go and find a necklace, retracing her footsteps. Aisha radiallahu anha. And while she's going to find it, she says, I find it, but by the time she comes back, she says the people are already left. The camp are already packed up and gone. She said because when they came to put the holdage, which was covered, the men they just picked it up. They didn't realise I wasn't in it because I was a young lady and I was very light. And our food in those days, many women, it was very, stuff that wasn't lots of meat and fat and stuff that, So she said I was very light. She's saying it herself. So they mustn't have noticed when they picked it up I wasn't actually inside it. So they just put it on, plunked it on and off they went. Yeah. So they'd gone. So she said she decided that the best thing to do, she's saying herself, was to stay in the place where they're encamped. Because as they go on, surely they'll realise when they eventually stop, and they're likely to come back to the same place. So it's good thinking by young Aisha, rather than wandering off this way and that way. She said, I thought I'll stay in the same place where they're encamped. They're likely to retrace their footsteps back. So she said, I settled down and I fell asleep. And she said, next thing I realised that it seemed the person who was left behind at the back of the military was Safwan ibn Mu'attal. Safwan ibn Mu'attal as-Sulami. And he was attending to some need and finishing off. And as he's going back to his, basically the rear of the military expedition, as he's going off, she said, I only woke up when I hear Safwan ibn Mu'attal saying, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. It's the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She said, because I was lying down and he had already seen me before the ayahs of hijab had come, so he recognized me. Yeah? Do you understand what she's saying? He already knew what I looked like because that was before. The Sahaba had already seen the wives of the Prophet because ayahs of hijab and screen have just come. So she said, I woke up and when he was saying, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, this is the wife of the Prophet. So I screened myself from him. I said nothing to him and he said nothing else to me. The only thing he said was, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And he was, and she mentions about him being a most trustworthy, amazing person, Sahabi. He brought the camel, she said, and he made the camel kneel on its front so I could climb on it, on top of the camel, his camel, and he walked with the camel all the way until they reached the encampment of the military, which was still a day or two outside Medina. That's what happened. Now, as he's arriving in broad daylight to the encampment, we have no other details. That's when the same shaitanic person who was causing trouble before about between the Muhajir and Ansar, remember, at Banu Mustalaq, he's still there. He now decides, what's this? Safwan, a strange man coming with the wife of the messenger on his camel, right? So he decided to use the opportunity to weave a lie and a story. Because remember, Munafiqs, their intention was always to destroy this gathering of good. Yeah. So that's what happened. He weaved the story. Aisha said, I knew nothing of it. So now she said, then and in Medina, the people who were going to get destroyed and caught in this lie, got caught in this lie and destroyed. And the leader of them, she says, was Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul. She's telling you from past what she found out. al-Mu'mineen, she says, when I was in Medina, as I arrived, I fell ill for a whole month. I fell ill for a whole month. And I didn't know what was going on, of the whisperings and the troubles, and it was all around Medina. She said, I didn't know. I was ill. She said, the only thing that used to irk me was the Prophet ﷺ, when I was ill normally, he'd be so tender and so gentle and loving to me. But this time, in this illness, instead of saying to me, how are you, beloved, and all this, he used to just say, and how is thou, how is she? He'd put it in a different way. And I found that odd. created some doubts. And what's wrong? That's all, she said. That's the only thing. And I didn't know what was going on outside. So she said nearly a month went by, right? And one day I decided I was visited by Mistah. And Mistah Mistah ibn Usasa was Badri. Mistah is not just ordinary person, he stood at Badr. So Badr Sahaba always continue to have that special level which wasn't accorded to anybody else after them. So Mistah was Badri. And Mistah was also one of the ones, not Munafiq, one of the Sahaba who got caught up in this slanderous news. So it wasn't just Abdullah ibn Ubay, that was going around saying this, that Aisha had basically been involved in adultery, but 3 of the non-Munafiqs from the Sahaba got caught up in it. Mistah was one of them. Mistah was a relative also, as Mistah was, Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, and he was poor. And Abu Bakr for some years used to give him like a grant to look after his situation because he was poor. So the father of Aisha is looking after Mistah financially, but Mistah's going around spreading slander about the daughter of Abu Bakr radiallahu anh. And the other person who was involved was Hassan ibn Thabit. Hassan ibn Thabit, the great Sahabi, he was a poet. He was a poet, and famous poet even after Rasulullah left the world. And the third person was Hamna bint Jahsh, the sister of Zainab bint Jahsh. Zainab bint Jahsh was already married to the Prophet ﷺ. Hamna bint Jahsh was her sister. Aisha radiallahu anha says in the same story that one of the wives who had the biggest competition with me for the attention of Rasulullah ﷺ was Zainab bint Jahsh. But she said the Prophet ﷺ asked her, and she mentioned this in her story, that's how much respect and reverence she still had for Zainab. She said, asked her about me, what Zainab thought. Zainab said, Zainab bint Jahsh said, I seek refuge in Allah from my hearing and from my tongue, meaning from this lie that I get involved in this. The only thing I know about her, Aisha, is only good. So Aisha said, I'll never forget that, because she had more right to pick a bone with me at every opportunity now, because she was the biggest one in competition. But she's saying her sister fell into the trap, because her sister wanted more for Zainab bin Jahsh. Even though Zainab bin Jahsh is being honest, Hamna fell into the slanderous weaving of shaitan. So she was going around spreading it as well. So these are the 3 Sahaba who got involved, who were not seen as munafiqs. Not then, not before, and not after either, till this day. Anyhow, so coming back to the Aisha says, one day Mistah, mother of Mistah, came to visit, and I needed to go in the night to go and relieve myself. We used to go to a place further away, as was our habit in the Jahili days. The place to go and relieve ourselves were further away, until the time when lavatories were made adjacent near our houses. So I went with Mistah to relieve myself. On the way back, she said, as we got nearer home, Mistah stumbled and tripped. And as she did, she said, "Curse be upon Mr." And she said, Aisha said, you're his mother. How can you say something so horrible? You're his mother, and he's Badri. He stood at Badr. How could you? Na'udhu billah, how can you say this? Curse be upon him. Yeah? And in some reports it mentions it happens 3 times. She trips and he keeps on saying it. And she doesn't say why she's saying it, and eventually she does. So Aisha, when she repeats it the 3rd time, so she says, "Don't you know what he's been saying?" She said, Aisha said, I said, "What? What do you mean, don't I know what he's been saying?" She said, "Don't you know what he's been saying?" So she tells Aisha what he was going around saying. So she says, "I came home and I wept and cried all night long until I felt as though my liver was going to be wrenched out." She's in absolute shock. Yeah. And traumatized by hearing that this is going around Medina. She says now, you see, also around this time, she's saying she hears, obviously afterwards, the Prophet ﷺ asked 2 people in the household who were close to the household. One is his son-in-law, Ali radiallahu anh, and the other is Usama ibn Zayd. Who's Usama ibn Zayd? Like, who's Zayd? His father. Zayd ibn Haritha. Was his adopted son, remember? Used to be his slave many, many years, and then he adopted him even before Nubuwwah. So his son is Usama, who's been brought up like a grandson, Prophet ﷺ. Yeah. So he asked these 2 about Aisha radiallahu anha. Yeah. So Usama is still young. He says, "Ya Rasulullah, this is your family. Ya Rasulullah. Yeah, this is your family. I only know, the only thing I know about her is good, Ya Rasulullah. Yeah. This is your family." And she said, and I think she remembered that Ali radiallahu anhu, when he was asked, he said, "Ya Rasulullah, there's plenty of women. You can easily release her and marry another woman." I think she liked that. You can tell she remembers it. She remembers it. Some scholars said that's a bone she had to pick with Ali still till the day that they had the battle afterwards over Uthman ibn Affan. That was still in Allahu Alam. I don't say that, but certainly. But Ali radiallahu anh, being the usual macho, Ya Rasulullah, you can marry any. Forget all this. If you need to divorce her, just divorce her. You don't need to be faced all this, because he's seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Remember this time. This is very testing time, and then also an evidence of the truthfulness of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he didn't get revelation for a month, brothers and sisters. Why would any man, leader, seeing what's happening, and you'll see what else is happening in a minute, right, not suddenly concoct a revelation? Why did he need to wait a month to make himself and everybody else suffer? And it was on the verge of civil war going on in Medina over this. Over this. I'll show you in a minute how. And that shows, because revelation is not in his hand, is it? This is a great evidence. Yeah, guy's making it up himself, so he just comes the next day and says, "You're all liars. Yeah, I've just had revelation." No, 1 month of suffering. 1 month of suffering. And look how it happens in the end. So, Ali radiallahu anh, when he says that, but he gives a good advice as well. Typical judge, who's thinking. He says, "Ya Rasulullah, however, why don't you ask Barira?" Barira is a young lady who's her servant. She's always around her. Yeah. She's a servant. She's always around her. I reminds me in the hadith, it's just something by the by I should mention. Aisha radiallahu anha, when she says about this time, about her at this age, that she was a young lady, she says that I was a jariyah. Jariyah. And Barira is referred to as a jariyah as well. Now, the word jariyah, why I mention it, I digress now. When you look at some of the ahadith to do with music and singing, which happened at the time of Rasulullah ﷺ and with the Sahaba, contrary to what many will tell you, the word used in some of the ahadith is the jariyah, or the jariyah was singing, not dancing, singing or playing music, singing to music. So the ones who are against adults singing and music, they always translate it and they say jariyah means little girls. In other words, it's alright for little girls to sing and have music. Nobody will argue with you with that. Nobody will they? So they try and use the word jariyah exclusively for little girls. And when you mean little girls, it means pre-pubertal, not married. That's what they're saying. So I took this hadith and the hadith to do with listening to performance and the day of Eid when Aisha herself is singing, with the music, with other jariyah. She uses the word jariyah for herself. She's married to Rasulullah ﷺ. So does jariyah mean a little girl? No, it doesn't. And even if it means a young girl, she's using it as a married woman. She's a jariyah. This hadith mentions it, and the other hadith authentic in Bukhari, she mentions it, that I was a jariyah. So it cannot mean only little girls. So this is an evidence against those who say only little girls can sing and play music in those hadith that they interpret. Which is interesting for you, just I'm showing you the word jariyah has a wider meaning as well. So it's not used just for... And in the case of slave women, jariyah can be used for an older woman who's a slave. And the idea of Barira is not she's a young girl. Because she's saying when Barira is called by Rasulullah ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ asked Barira about Aisha radiallahu anha. Tell me about her trustworthiness. She goes, Ya Rasulullah, there's nothing to tell. There's no negative. She couldn't think of anything negative. Can you imagine that? So he's asking somebody more experienced. He's not calling a little girl to ask about a young woman. He's not calling Barira, called a jariyah, but because she's a serving person, they use that word for somebody older, because she looks after her in that sense as well. And look what she says. She says, Ya Rasulullah, there's nothing I can think of negative to say about Aisha radiallahu anha. So in some reports, which are not in Bukhari or Muslim, it mentions about Ali being a bit strong-handed and saying, come on, tell the truth, otherwise we're going to beat you up. But anyway, so they say that eventually she said, Ya Rasulullah, the only thing I can think of is one thing. She's a young girl, you see. Barira saying it. Now, Barira can only say she's a young girl if she's older. You understand? Yeah? She's saying she's still a young girl. She's still a young woman. And when she's baking dough, she's a bit neglectful. She falls asleep. So the goats come and nick the dough. That's the only thing she can think of negative to say about Aisha radiallahu anha. Subhanallah. That's Ummul Mu'mineen Aisha. That's the maqam of Aisha radiallahu anha, Ummul Mu'mineen. You see? Being asked, and this servant has no reason to be telling lies, because the Prophet ﷺ asking. Nobody's going to punish her. So she's racking her brain to think of anything negative, and look what she comes up with. That's the only negative she can come up with. There's not, she goes around backbiting Ya Rasulullah, talking behind her. Can you imagine what would be said about us nowadays if somebody asked all the negatives that had come out? And there'd be right coming out from us, wouldn't there? But look at Aisha radiallahu anha. Subhanallah. So she says, oh, it's just that the goats come and pinch the dough. Well, she falls asleep. That's all I can think of, Ya Rasulullah. So the Prophet ﷺ, after hearing this, is to some extent satisfied, and the the Sun newspaper and the Daily Star are still spreading the garbage in Medina, right? That's what's happening. Prophet ﷺ stands on the mimbar in the Masjid Nabawi, and he says, after delivering a sermon, he says, who will deal with a man who's slandered my household? Yeah? Who slandered my household? They're talking about Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul. Who will deal with a man who slandered my household, about whom I know nothing but good? And he's done that after checking out. He's not just coming and saying himself either. He's not got revelation, he's done his investigations as well. Right? Who will do? And about and slandering about a man about whom I know nothing but good. Safwan ibn Mu'attal is talking about. The only times he's ever been in the presence of my household is in my company. Yeah? I had nothing to question or doubt about him. So, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh stands up. Ya Rasulullah, leave it to me. If it is from the Aus, I will chop his head off. And if he's from the Khazraj, yeah, after your permission, we'll do the same to him. Sa'd ibn Ubadah, leader of Khazraj, stands up. What does he say? He says, you lie. He's responding not to the Prophet, to Sa'd. Look what's happening now, you see, between them. You're a liar. How dare you? You know very well he's from the Khazraj. You will not kill him. By Allah. You will not kill him, or we'll kill you. Now, Usayd. Is it Usayd? Let's double check. Yeah. Yep. Usayd ibn Hudayr. Just want to make sure. Usayd ibn Hudayr, who's the cousin, who's from Aus as well, and the cousin of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. Don't get confused. There's two Sa'ds who's the leaders of the Aus and Khazraj. Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, Aus. Sa'd ibn Ubadah, Khazraj. So Sa'd ibn Mu'adh's cousin now, Usayd, stands up and says back to Sa'd ibn Ubadah, you're a liar. You're a liar. And you are munafiq. By Allah, we will kill him. And you become a munafiq by listening and being deceived by the other munafiq. So there's about to be warfare. This is in the masjid. And the Prophet is standing on the mimbar. So remember I said to you that look what's going on. Yeah. Potential civil war, and the Prophet calms him down. Yeah, calms him down, but he's not sorted it out, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. A month's gone by. Yeah, he's coming to this level of problems in Medina. So the Prophet Aisha radiallahu anha says that she found from Mustalaq, she's weeping day and night, and then she took permission from the Prophet. She said, I took permission to go to my parents' house because I wanted to go and check with them what they'd heard. So she goes back home, and her mother, Ruman, Abu Bakr. So she speaks to her mother, crying, and tells her, do you know what's being said? And she says, her mother said, don't worry, daughter. Every beautiful woman whose husband loves her and she's in love with him, you always find when there are other wives there in competition that slanders and all kinds of lies will be spread. It'll just go away. didn't comfort her. She said it didn't comfort her anymore. She continued crying all night and all day. Yeah? And her father listened, said, we don't know what to do. What can we say? And they said to her, go back home. It'll always go back to your husband. We can't do it. So she went back home. Nothing resolved. And then she says, soon after that time, that she was visited by her mother and father in the Prophet's house where she is. And while they were there with her, she had been crying again day and night, and was still crying. One of her friends came and sat with her. She was crying with her as well. And she said, now the Prophet ﷺ came on this day. And she said, he came in and said salam, and he actually sat down. And he hadn't sat down with me and spent any time with me for a while now, for this month. And after doing shahada, tashahud, saying ashhadu an la ilaha, he said, he now addressed me, she said. She said, I was crying and weeping. And he said to me, Aisha, surely Allah will, if you're innocent, surely Allah will clear you, and prove your innocence. But if you're guilty, and this is a bit that got to her, you see. But if you're guilty, Aisha, then ask forgiveness from Allah. Because there is no servant who doesn't ask sincerely forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive them. Even though Prophet ﷺ given a general remark, but she said, now when the Messenger of Allah said that, my tears dried up. She's become, how dare you, basically think, how dare you even suggest it, right? So she said, my tears disappeared. Yep, there were no more tears to be had. And I, not stood up, but I dried my eyes, and I said to my mother, so say something to him, answer him on my behalf. She said, my mother said, I don't know what to say. So then I said to my father, answer him on my behalf, what he's saying. Abu Bakr, he said, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say, daughter, dear darling daughter. So she said, then I spoke, she said, and I was still young, she said, and I didn't know much of the Qur'an. So I said to the Messenger of Allah, she said, you have been listening to so much of this, right, poison, that it's affected your mind and heart. Oh dear, saying to the Messenger of Allah. If I say to you, I'm innocent, by Allah I am innocent and He knows, yeah, you will never believe me. And if I say to you that I'm guilty, and by Allah I am innocent, yeah, you will believe me. Then she said, and because I didn't know much of the Quran, she said, I couldn't remember Yusuf alayhi salam's father's name, Yaqub. So I said, and I say like Abu Yusuf says in the Quran, فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ وَاللَّهُ الْمُسْتَعَانُ عَلَى مَا تَصِفُونَ. For me, the best thing is to have patience in Allah. Yeah? And I ask Allah's help from what you are saying. That's what she said. And she said, I said it to all of them, and then I turned my back, she said, to lie down and utterly dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I was hoping inside myself that little me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will somehow, clear my name. Never did I think, she says, because I was so trivial, me, that Allah will send down verses in the Quran to be recited for all time to come to clear my name. I thought Allah SWT sent some sort of vision to the Prophet ﷺ, yeah, in his sleep, or Jibreel will come and clear my name, but I didn't know Allah will send verses of the Quran to a lowly person like me. Look at the humility. Beautiful it is, really. It's so touching. And she said, I depended utterly on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She said, and while we were sat there, nobody had moved. Yeah? revelation came upon the Prophet ﷺ, as it used to. And it was a cold winter's day. And he went into his situation where he's perspiring, pearls of perspiration, yeah, because of the pressure of revelation. That's how it was for him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. On a cold winter's day, was perspiring, Aisha says. And after that episode passed over him, he spoke and said, "Oh Aisha, good news, Allah has cleared your name." And he recited, and we'll come to the verses. He recited these ayat in Surah An-Nur. And Abu Bakr and his wife, her mum and dad, they were so happy and relieved. Yeah, she was as well, of course. Prophet ﷺ rejoicing, giving good news, and they say, get up, go to him. Go to him. And she goes, I said, no, I will not go to him to thank him. I'll only praise and thank Allah. Yeah. So this is the story. She also mentions the same story that my father, Abu Bakr, when he found out Mistah was involved in this slander against me, his daughter, he took an oath. He took an oath not to give him any more expenditure and help, financial help. Yeah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed another couple of verses to do with that. So let me finish with those. The whole thing's being taken by this story. But some of the books on Seerah, and it's their choice, of course, they just mention the ifk and they just leave it. Yeah. But why have I gone into it in detail? Because there's great lessons there. Because Quranic ayat came about it. Quranic ayat came about it. You can't just put it to one side. And there were lessons to be learned for Sahaba, but for us today as well, till this day. Yeah. And that's why I mention it. But also to show the Sahaba can fall into error, as the three who did. Yeah. Then still not be called munafiqs. And to show you the character of Umm-al-Mu'mineen Aisha. It's amazing for a young lady of her age. For a young lady of her age, who used to refer for years to come to the Messenger of Allah as her darling, her love. She mentions that in so many hadith, you know. And how dare those wretched people, and I'll cover this topic another time when I cover the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, the wretched people who've got only jaundice in their own eyes and evil in their own hearts, point a finger at Rasulullah ﷺ for marrying Aisha at 9 years of age, which is authenticated, and wasn't the only one who got married at 9 when she was in puberty and seen as adult in those days. How dare they point finger and call it child abuse? A child abused for years to come, and she lived a long time after him, doesn't refer to her abuser in those terms. Doesn't refer to the abuser in those terms. Na'udhu billah min dhalik. Anyway, so according to the Quran, the punishment of slander, of this kind of slander, is 80 lashes. Was given to who? These three: Mistah, Hassan ibn Thabit, and Hamna bint Jahsh. They all got the same punishment. Yeah. And none of this idea that the women got the punishment and the men got away with it, as the Orientalists try and portray. Yeah, lashes are being given out to men, the women, and the men are free. No. Two of them are men and one's a woman. They got the same punishment. The one who got away with it, there's no authentic evidence that Abdullah ibn Salul, Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul was given the... Ulama then discuss it afterwards, because to get the punishment is a clearance of the sin, isn't it? Because you're going to be forgiven. But Munafiq's not going to be forgiven. Yeah. So he was behind the scenes, but didn't admit on face, whereas these Sahaba, yeah, when they're asked, they're going to admit their guilt and say, yes, we did it. We were misled. You follow me? So they got the punishment. So, what verses were revealed? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah An-Nur, verse 11 onwards. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان. إن الذين جاءوا بالإفك عصبة منكم لا تحسبوه شرا لكم بل هو خير لكم لكل امرئ منهم ما اكتسب من الإثم والذي تولى كبره منهم له عذاب عظيم. Allah SWT says, surely those who came with the ifk, the big lie, yeah, they're a group from amongst you. Usbatun minkum, meaning they're Sahaba. They're from amongst you who fell into this. That's what Allah SWT is saying. La tahsabuhu sharran lakum. Don't think this is evil and bad for you. Yeah? Don't think this was bad for you, this experience of going through this. But actually, it is good for you. How do we see that? Because of the lessons it taught. Yeah? Through going through the experience, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught them, saved them from the brink of civil warfare, and taught them lessons, and they were taught lessons that Muslim society, yeah, really, a moral society, doesn't spread slanders, or even if it's true, doesn't spread these kind of things around. You couldn't imagine it nowadays, could you? Nowadays, they revel in telling about it themselves. Yeah? News of the world, or whatever it is nowadays, it's not in the papers, it's on the thingamy. I slept with so many, and I slept with so many, and it's like, you know, they revel in it. You can't imagine, this is immoral, this is not to be seen in an Islamic society amongst Muslim communities. Yeah? Muslim communities is about covering, actually. And therefore, even for adultery, why? 4 witnesses before the punishment, 4 witnesses, not 4 witnesses who think they've seen something, but 4 witnesses who have clearly seen without any shadow of doubt. That doesn't mean you see they've seen actually 2 naked people lying next to each other. Even that doesn't count, brothers and sisters. When I say without any shadow of doubt, it means without any shadow of doubt. And how often are you going to find that happening? You see? And if it's 3, what happens to the 3 who come and claim that they've seen it actually, and they have seen it? If they come, what happens to those 3? They get 80 lashes each. You understand? You follow me? And even if they've seen it, in other words, they're not supposed to go around spreading and sharing it now, but to cover it. Anyway. But it is good for you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. For every one of them has accumulated a sin in proportion to the share of his or her guilt. And the one who has the greater part, وَالَّذِي تَوَلَّى كِبْرَهُ, who has the greater part of the sin from amongst them, لَهُ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ, for him will be a severe and great punishment. That's talking about Abdullah ibn Ubay, because he got scot-free. Still. لولا إذ سمعتموه ظن المؤمنون والمؤمنات بأنفسهم خيرا. And it not, why was it not that when you heard you heard this, why is it that the believing men and believing women didn't think good, didn't think good about their own people? Meaning about Aisha, about Safwan ibn Mu'attal. Why didn't you have some good, give them some benefit of being good people instead of jumping to the conclusions that you jumped to? Yeah? Again, a lesson. That when you hear something, don't jump to the worst conclusions. Oh yeah, he is like that, she is like that. This is not the way of believers. It's teaching us for this day as well. And don't let your prejudice and biases affect it. Yeah? Hamna bint Jahash, striving for a sister to get more attention from the Prophet, her bias affected her, didn't it? And she fell into this. So Allah's teaching. Why did they think, وَقَالُوا هَذَا إِفْكٌ مُبِينٌ? And why didn't they say instead, this is a manifest lie and slander? Why didn't they say that? لَوْلَا جَاءُوا عَلَيْهِ بِأَرْبَعَةِ شُهَدَاءَ فإذ لم يأتوا بالشهداء فأولئك عند الله هم الكاذبون. Why did they not then bring 4 witnesses? Yeah, and if they didn't, which they didn't bring witnesses, for surely it is indeed a great lie. In the Uloom-ul Qur'an, for surely before Allah they indeed are liars. Here the issue is not about 4 witnesses. Actually, there was no witnesses. There was no witnesses. But Allah SWT is teaching about, even if it is seen, has to be 4 witnesses. Yeah? In this case, it was a complete lie. وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَتُهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ لَمَسَّكُمْ فِي مَا أَفَدتُّمْ فِيهِ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. And were it not for the bounty of Allah and His mercy upon you in this world and the hereafter, a grievous punishment would have seized you on account of what you indulged in. And this is grievous punishment for the believers who indulged in it. Yeah? And they were forgiven because of the punishment they were given, but grievous punishment, talking about the punishment in the hereafter. Yeah? Allah's bounty and favour also on the believers as a whole, as He saved them from civil war and killing each other as well, because of the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His favour of belief that He'd given them. إِذْ تَلَقَّوْنَهُ بِأَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَتَقُولُونَ بِأَفْوَاهِكُمْ مَا لَيْسَ لَكُمْ بِهِ عِلْمٌ وَتَحْسَبُونَهُ هَيِّنًا وَهُوَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ عَظِيمٌ. And when you were receiving this lie with your tongues, and you were saying with your mouths, مَا لَيْسَ لَكُمْ بِهِ عِلْمٌ, that which you had no knowledge about. You're just spreading it. You didn't have any knowledge, just slanderous. وَتَحْسَبُونَهُ هَيِّنًا, and you thought, it's only mere tittle-tattle. Is that what they say nowadays, isn't it, in English? Tittle-tattle. It's nothing. It's trivial. Everybody who gossips nowadays, yeah, they think gossiping and slandering is trivial. It's nothing. I'm just having a joke and a jest. I was just kidding. Yeah. Isn't that the kind of thing? We belittle what the tongue is actually doing. What does Allah SWT say? وَهُوَ إِنَّ اللَّهِ عَظِيمٌ. You thought it was nothing. Yeah? Trifle. But in the sight of Allah, it is a great and grave and serious matter. Look at, this is morality of Islam, isn't it? وَلَوْلَا إِذْ سَمِعْتُمُوهُ قُلْتُمْ مَا يَكُونُ لَنَا أَن نَتَكَلَّمَ بِهَذَا سُبْحَانَكَ هَذَا بُهْتَانٌ عَظِيمٌ. Here Allah SWT took the words which were mentioned by Abu Ayyub al-Ansari to his wife when he heard the news. Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, the house where the Prophet ﷺ first settled, yeah, his relative, yeah, Banu Najjar. When he heard the news, he said, مَا يَكُونُ لَنَا أَن نَتَكَلَّمْ بِهَذَا. We're not going to speak about this. Glory be to Him. Glory be to you, Allah. This is a great lie and a slander. That's what he said when he was approached with it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, why didn't the rest of you do what he said? Using Abu Ayyub al-Ansari's words, subhanallah, which he mentioned in authentic hadith. Buhtanun adim. يَعِذُكُمُ اللَّهُ أَن تَعُودُوا لِمِثْلِهِ أَبَدًا إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning and advising you never to return to the like of this kind of behavior, abadan, ever, if you are true believers. That's not just for Sahaba, that's teaching us for the time to come, isn't it? Don't fall into this kind of thing. وَيُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمُ الْآيَاتِ Wallahu alimun hakim. And Allah is clarifying and explaining to you His signs for all of you. For surely Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. We're running out of time. I'll miss a verse or two out. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان ومن يتبع خطوات الشيطان فإنه يأمر بالفحشاء والمنكر ولولا فضل الله عليكم ورحمته ما زكى منكم من أحد أبدا ولكن الله يزكي من يشاء والله سميع عليم. It's so beautiful and powerful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, oh, you who believe, don't follow the footsteps of shaitan. When following footsteps of shaitan, it's not that shaitan's going to come with horns, breathing fire, yeah, and red eyes like a jinn, and a tail and like a serpent and a trident, yeah, and you're seeing him like that. Following footsteps of shaitan is going to be through whispers and trials and people slandering and gossiping, and you're falling into it. Don't follow the footsteps of shaitan. Whoever follows the footsteps of shaitan, for surely shaitan orders him, yeah, towards lewdness and evil and all kind of wrong. Was it not, if it not been for the bounty and favor of Allah upon you and His mercy, yeah, مَا زَكَى مِنْكُم مِّنْ أَحَدٍ أَبَدًا, not one of you would have been purified ever. Allah who purifies, yeah, Allah, وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهُ يُزَكِّي مَنْ يَشَاءُ, for surely, however, it is Allah who purifies whomever He wills, purifies from this kind of behavior. Wallahu Sami'un Alim, for surely Allah is all hearing, all knowing. The last two ayahs then came, وَلَا يَأْتِلْ أُولِي الْفَضْلِ مِنْكُمْ وَالسَّعَةِ أَنْ يُؤْتُوا أُولِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْمُهَاجِرِينَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Do not let those, who have been given bounty and riches, make an oath and swear not to help those who are needy from the relatives and from the poor and from the muhajirin in the way of Allah. وَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَسْفَحُوا. Let them overlook, yeah, and forgive. أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَنْ يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Do you not want that Allah should forgive you? Wallahu ghafurur rahim. So Abu Bakr responded, yeah, to finish what he said, Wallahi inni uhib an yaghfir Allahu li. By Allah, I would love that Allah forgives me. So he continued, then restarted paying the stipend and the grant he was paying to Mustaq. That is the end of the story of Ifk. I hope and pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we learned some lessons from it. And to finish with, anyone who questions the chastity of any of the Ummahat al-Mu'mineen and Ummul Mu'mineen, Aisha radiallahu anha, which is being cleared in the Quran, her name, anybody who points a finger, they commit kufr. I don't say they kafir, they commit kufr in that statement. That you need to know. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لكم إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.